3 things not to do in Australia. Number 1 is don't go out without sunscreen. Even if you normally don't burn easily, the sun is a lot stronger in Australia and you don't want to end up looking like this guy. Number 2 is don't go looking for a Starbucks. There's not very many of them and you'll find much better coffee in one of the cafes. Number 3 is don't assume the ocean in Australia is just like anywhere else you've been. You need to learn how to...
Hey guys, so I'm here to tell you the most important tips of living here in Taiwan as a foreigner. So I'm half Taiwanese and I lived in Taiwan for 4 years for university. When I first moved here, I was a bit confused on how to go about my daily life because obviously as a foreigner, you're new to everything. So I'm here to guide you on how to make your life in Taiwan a lot more convenient and enjoyable because choosing to live in Taiwan was the best thing that's ever happened. So the first thing is to use the public transits. These are definitely going to save you from wasting time and money. MRTs especially are located throughout the entire city, so wherever you are in Taipei, it's only just walking distance to the stations. I highly recommend purchasing this Easy Card, which is basically your transportation card to scan in and out of all the stations. And you can purchase these easily at 7-Eleven. Now 7-Elevens in Taiwan are also going to be your biggest lifesavers. They have everything and anything you can ask for all in one shop. And they're also located at pretty much every corner in the streets. If you're hungry, come to 7-Eleven. If you need to print any papers or purchase any tickets, come to 7-Eleven. If you need to withdraw cash, come to 7-Eleven. Now a third important thing is to carry cash with you everywhere you go. Let's say you want to try some local food at a night market or just a little shop on the corner. These places do not take credit card and you will definitely need Taiwan dollars to pay. It's also so much more convenient to pay with cash in Taiwan compared to the States because there are no taxes. So whatever price you see is the price you're gonna pay. And lastly, if you're a foreigner coming to study or just to live here and want to make some extra money on the side, there's a lot of teaching opportunities for languages such as English being the biggest one, French, Japanese, and more. For the time I was there, I was actually a private English tutor and I just loved the entire experience. One of the biggest questions I always get asked is if you really need Mandarin to get around. I personally already know how to speak Mandarin, but from what I've seen, short answer is no, you don't. A lot of the locals already know how to speak English, but if they don't, they will be willing to help you otherwise. But then again, it's always good to know the basics of the country you're going to. So I hope you guys find these tips helpful when you plan your next trip or stay in Taiwan.
Things to know before moving abroad as an American. This is general, moving abroad anywhere, just general things you should know. People hate us, but you can use that to your advantage because their ideas of you are so low, you can only surprise them in a positive way. So they might think you're an idiot. Guess what? You can surprise them by being smart. I would suggest lying about where you're from, not when it comes to being American, usually. More like if you're from a state that people don't know. For example, I'm from Oregon. Sometimes I lie and say I'm from California because it's just easier. English usage. So most countries, you will find a good amount of people that speak English, and this is such a blessing because you can connect with people all over the world, so be grateful and realize that our slang is specific and they might not know it, and that's kind of fun. Everyone thinks we're rich. Everyone. Like, that is the stereotype that Americans are wealthy, probably because Americans that have traveled to a foreign country are wealthy usually. So do with that what you may. You might want to be like, I'm not rich. You might want to be like, I am rich. Do with it what you may. Just know that that's what they assume. Everyone brings up guns. Okay, everyone, and they do it in a super non-empathetic way usually. So that is an easy litmus test. If someone brings up school shootings and does it in a way that's super disrespectful towards the literal children that lose their lives every day, don't be friends with them. Super easy.
Hey y'all, good morning. We back. So this is a great question, and a question that I've gotten asked regularly because obviously safety for Black folks is of the utmost importance. And for context, I have lived in Asia. I've lived in the Middle East. I've lived in Africa. I've lived in the northern part of America, which is Mexico. And I've also lived in Europe as well. For me, in my personal experience, I haven't had too many unsavory incidents where I felt unsafe. However, I would say Egypt, specifically living in Cairo, was one of those places that you got to have some grit. You got to have a little dog in your fight. And if you look at my pin post about my worst experiences abroad, you will see what it is that I encountered when I lived there. Now, to the second part of this question, and I want y'all to listen up. Do not allow anybody on this app or any other app to tell you where is the safest places for you to go, and here's why. Safety is subjective, so where it is that I felt safe and I felt completely comfortable, somebody else might not feel safe, and I'll give you an example. I lived in 2 cities in China. I've traveled to over 12 cities in China, and I felt completely safe. I loved living in China. However, you may find another content creator that tells you, no, China is not for black people, etc., etc., etc. Then what? They're only telling you that based on their own personal experience, and everybody's experience is going to be totally different. I'll give you another example. I've been living in Mexico for the past 3 years, specifically in Cancun. And I kept hearing a lot about Merida. And I was like, okay, let us go visit. I ain't like it. And not anything about safety. It's not that I didn't feel unsafe, but it just wasn't for us. My son's father didn't like it either. So literally, I will tell you, and you know what I mean? It may not be the answer that you want, but it's the answer that you need. There's not one place that I've been on this earth that I felt unsafe. Outside of the United States of America, that is.
One thing about Swedes is they will be talking in weeks. After working in Sweden for almost 2 years, I've noticed a few differences between the US and Swedish working systems. But one that has taken the longest to get used to is speaking in weeks of the year rather than dates. For example, instead of saying March 25th, Swedes will be like, let's just circle back week 12. And I never know off the top of my head what that means, so I always have to look at the calendar. So is this another case where the US is just on their own and the rest of the world is talking in weeks? Or is this a Swedish specific thing? And let's say someone says week 42. Do you actually know what those days?
I'm an American living in Australia. There are 3 things that I wish I knew before I came to Australia. This is the restaurant edition. First thing, when you're paying at a restaurant, you ask for the bill as opposed to the check. I've heard people say on TikTok that you have to go to the counter to order. I've never had that experience. I don't know where that's coming from. In general, people will take your order. Sometimes there's a QR code at the table from the COVID era where you put in like an order at a cafe on your phone. A waiter or waitress will come over, take your order, and when you're ready to pay, you get the bill. With the bill, somebody will come over with a little machine. The machine is how you pay. You don't hand over your credit card, which is like sort of weird that we do that in the US. We just give our credit card away to a stranger. First thing that they'll do is they'll ask you if you want to tip. Now, it is not customary to tip. These waiters and waitresses are making like $25 to $50 an hour. They are perfectly fine. They make a living. But if you feel inclined to tip, you can add a little tip in there. Not required, you can do it. Max 10%. And then they'll turn the machine back to you and expect you to tap your card. So in the US, we will swipe our card. We might even insert our PIN into and then put in a passcode. This is a tap. You know how some Apple Watches, you can tap? On your phone, you have a wallet. You can put your credit card information into your Apple wallet on your phone and tap your phone. I would definitely set that up before I came to Australia. Otherwise, you're going to be the one person who's swiping and signing, and it's just a whole to-do. So set up the tap. That's it for right now. There are so many more. I'll do another part.
One of the best things about working in Riyadh is how easy it is to hop to Dubai for the weekend. We booked the trip 3 days before leaving, and it cost us £100 for the flight and £50 per night for the Grand Millennium Hotel in Dubai. Especially as expats, we like to leave Riyadh for short weekend trips quite often. If you do that, you'll last a lot longer in the Middle East than if you stay for longer stretches.